So lately, I've discovered a lot of videos debating whether Unreal Engine 5 is ruining gaming, which I actually wasn't aware of until very recently. However, this year, after Black Myth and Wukong and The First Descendant, I started to get a weird feeling in my stomach. I've touched on this topic here and there in my recent videos, but today I want to go deeper and give you a perspective you've probably never heard before. To truly understand the negative impact of Unreal Engine 5, we need to go back in time. How far back? Let me tell you the crazy story of how factories changed everything, but not always in the ways you'd hope. Picture this. It's the late 1700s, and people are starting to tinker with machines that could revolutionize work. Spinning wheels and looms, once powered by hand or foot, were getting souped up with water power, then steam. It was a time of wild invention, where it seemed like anything was possible. But here's the kicker. While these machines were incredible feats of engineering, their real power wasn't just in what they could do, it was in how they reshaped who did the work. Before factories, work was personal. Craftsmen and women, your local weaver, shoemaker, or blacksmith had a relationship with their craft. They were proud of their skills, and their livelihoods were tied to their mastery of it. Then, along came these factories, with their gears spinning and chimneys belching smoke. Suddenly, the work was stripped down into these super simple tasks, and people didn't need to be skilled anymore. A machine could now do in minutes what a skilled artisan took hours to perfect. All the factory needed was someone to load the machine, pull a lever, or keep an eye on it. The artisan's years of training? Not necessary. It didn't matter if you were a blacksmith or a farmer. You could be turned into a factory worker in no time. For the factory owners, this was a dream come true. It was cheaper, faster, and, let's be honest, a little ruthless. You see, if someone was too slow, too sick, or started asking for higher wages, they could be replaced faster than you can say industrial progress. The machines didn't care who ran them, and the factory owners were happy to exploit that fact. Workers went from being respected craftsmen to being just another replaceable part in the system. And oh, the working conditions. These were no cozy workshops filled with the smell of freshly carved wood or dyed fabric. Factories were loud, filthy, and dangerous. Imagine the deafening hum of machinery, the constant risk of a hand or foot getting caught in a spinning wheel, and the relentless monotony of doing the same thing for 12 to 16 hours a day. And if you thought adults had it rough, let me tell you about the kids. Child labor was rampant. They were small enough to fit between machines and fix jams, which meant they often lost fingers, or worse. The craziest part of this story? For all the suffering, this model of production worked. Factories churned out goods at a pace that was unheard of before. Cloth, tools, and other essentials became cheaper and more accessible, which was great if you were a consumer. But if you were one of the workers caught in the machinery of this new industrial world, it felt like progress had left you behind. And this factory system didn't just stay in one place. Oh no, it spread like wildfire. By the time the Industrial Revolution was in full swing, entire cities were built around factories. Manchester, England, went from being a small town to the beating heart of the textile industry, a place so crowded and polluted it was nicknamed Cottonopolis. But for the workers, it wasn't a booming metropolis. It was a prison with smokestacks. Unreal Engine 5 has been celebrated as a transformative leap in game development, often compared to the industrial revolutions that reshaped entire industries. But if we look critically, it might not be the unambiguous leap forward it's been made out to be. In fact, the parallels with the industrial revolutions, particularly the rise of assembly lines and mechanized production, suggest that this revolution might carry many of the same pitfalls. During the early 20th century, the introduction of assembly lines, like those pioneered by Ford, revolutionized manufacturing. Tasks were broken down into simple, repetitive actions, allowing for unskilled workers to replace skilled craftsmen. It was a boon for output and profits, but a blow to the dignity and job security of workers. Expertise and individuality gave way to a system where anyone could be slotted in and out without disrupting production. A similar dynamic played out in the textile industry, where mechanized looms reduced reliance on skilled weavers. Sure, production rates skyrocketed, but the trade-offs were clear. Wages were driven down, skilled labor became undervalued, and the art of craftsmanship was replaced with uniform, mass-produced goods. While it was good for the bottom line, the human cost was undeniable. Unreal Engine 5 seems poised to usher in a comparable shift in game development. Its powerful tools and modular design make game creation more accessible, which on the surface is a noble goal. But this ease of use also comes with consequences. By lowering the barrier to entry and streamlining workflows, the engine potentially reduces the need for highly specialized developers. It's no longer about finding a master of a particular discipline. Instead, it's about hiring someone who can plug into the workflow and can be replaced just as easily. This commodification of labor raises troubling questions about job security and wages. If developers are seen as interchangeable parts of a production machine, their bargaining power diminishes. Studios might lean on this technology not just to produce more games, but to cut costs by outsourcing work to regions with lower wage expectations, mirroring the race to the bottom seen in industries like textiles and electronics. The result could be a workforce that is fragmented and exploited, with little regard for long-term stability or fair compensation. And then there's the issue of quality. The industrialization of production in other industries often led to homogenization, and there's a real risk of that happening in gaming. The push for faster, cheaper production could result in what you might call fast fashion games, rushed titles that prioritize quantity over quality, with parts of development outsourced and quality control stretched thin. Buggy, unpolished products could become the norm, eroding trust with players. The democratization of tools like Unreal Engine 5 is often framed as an unequivocal positive, but democratization, in the absence of protections for workers and a commitment to quality, can lead to exploitation and a dilution of creativity. Instead of empowering developers, this revolution might simply make them more replaceable, more expendable, and less valued. Everyone seems to love Unreal Engine 5. Gamers constantly obsess over its graphics showcases and often clamor for studios to adopt the engine. Publishers appreciate it for its marketing potential and the ability to outsource game development more easily. Developers favor it because it's generally easier to learn than many proprietary engines. With few competitors offering similar levels of graphical fidelity and technical capability while remaining accessible, it's easy to see why Unreal Engine 5 is so popular. But is this widespread obsession with Unreal Engine 5 actually harming the gaming industry? Recently, several major studios have announced their transition to Unreal Engine 5 for their future projects. CD Projekt Red is abandoning its in-house Red engine in favor of Unreal, a decision that raises eyebrows, since the Red engine has occasionally been more graphically impressive than Unreal. Microsoft has rebranded 343 Industries as Halo Studios, now tasked with developing future Halo games exclusively on UE5, retiring a proprietary engine that took years to build for Halo Infinite. BioWare is leaving Frostbite for Unreal, which might be wise, given Frostbite's limitations for third-person action RPGs, but the studio has more pressing issues that switching engines won't fix, like whether they'll even finish Mass Effect 5. Crystal Dynamics has dropped its own engine for the next Tomb Raider game, which will be developed on Unreal. Similarly, GSC Game World has abandoned its proprietary engine for Stalker 2, which raises concerns about whether they can replicate the unique AI and NPC behavior that made the series so distinctive in the past. The list goes on, with more studios following suit. While using Unreal Engine isn't inherently bad, this trend raises significant concerns. A notable aspect of this control is Epic Games' implementation of inclusive word choice in their coding standards. Developers are instructed to avoid terms like blacklist, whitelist, slave, master, and nuke, as well as gendered language such as guys or phrases like a poor man's X. The guidelines also recommend using singular they for hypothetical individuals and referring to non-person entities as it or its. While these measures aim to promote inclusivity, they have sparked debates about censorship and the imposition of specific ideologies on developers. Critics argue that such restrictions could stifle creativity and expression, as developers might feel constrained by the mandated language policies. Additionally, the global nature of game development means that these language guidelines may not align with cultural norms and linguistic structures worldwide, potentially leading to confusion or misinterpretation. Moreover, the enforcement of these standards could inadvertently marginalize developers who are non-native English speakers, or those from cultures with different linguistic conventions. The push for uniform language usage might overlook the rich diversity of expression inherent in a global industry, thereby limiting the unique perspectives that various cultures bring to game development. Here's a quote from a real developer that uses Unreal Engine 5 for the past 7 years. For smaller studios, Unreal can become a crutch. It promises easy photorealism, but that ease comes at a cost: originality. Instead of creating distinct visual identities, many teams end up defaulting to Unreal's built-in tools and presets. And as much as as I hate to admit it, Unity doesn't suffer from this problem in quite the same way. Unity's more open-ended approach allows for more visual diversity, even if that means its games sometimes look rougher around the edges. Here's the harsh truth. Unreal Engine, especially with recent updates, is becoming less indie-friendly. It's transforming into a tool best suited for large studios with the resources to overcome its inherent limitations. For smaller teams, those limitations can feel like a trap, an engine that promises creative freedom but often delivers generic results unless you have the budget to break out of its mold. I don't want to see Unreal fall into irrelevance or become the engine people roll their eyes at. I've been using it for 7 years, and it's made me the designer I am today. But it's not perfect, and I think the industry needs to have these conversations about the oversaturation of games that look the same, about the challenges smaller teams face when using these tools, and about how we can all push for more diversity and innovation in game design. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts. The biggest advantage of in-house engines is that they're tailored to the exact needs of the studio. Take Insomniac's engine, for example. It's built specifically for fast-paced, open-world games like Spider-Man. That's why you get those buttery smooth transitions and no loading screens when you're swinging through New York. Decima engine, on the other hand, is perfect for expansive open worlds like Horizon Zero Dawn or Death Stranding, with stunning environments and intricate detail. Naughty Dog's engine, it's all about storytelling. Those hyper-realistic facial expressions and immersive environments in The Last of Us couldn't happen without a toolset built specifically for their games. These engines are purpose-built, meaning they don't carry the unnecessary bulk or compromises you might find in a general-purpose engine like Unreal. Then there's the hardware optimization factor. Studios like Naughty Dog and Santa Monica Studio only develop for PlayStation, so they can fine-tune their engines to squeeze every ounce of power from the console. That's why their games often have better frame rates, richer environments, and shorter loading times. In contrast, Unreal Engine 5 is designed to work across all platforms, which makes it more flexible but less optimized for specific hardware. It's a bit like designing one-size-fits-all clothing. It works, but it doesn't fit anyone perfectly. Another thing to consider is how Unreal Engine 5 tries to do everything, and that can sometimes backfire. Because it's built to handle so many types of games, it comes loaded with features and tools that most developers won't even use. This adds complexity and can make development more resource-intensive. In-house engines, by comparison, are stripped down to what the studio actually needs. That means developers spend less time tweaking or disabling unnecessary features and more time focusing on the game itself. Speaking of developers, when a studio builds its own engine, the devs have direct input on how it evolves. If they run into a specific issue during development, they can work with the engine team to solve it. It's like having a custom tool built for your exact needs. With Unreal, even though it's customizable, it's still designed by Epic Games for a broad audience. Studios using it don't have the same level of control over its features or design. This alignment between the engine and the studio's artistic vision is another big deal. Take Naughty Dog, for instance. They've fine-tuned their engine to prioritize things like realistic animations and character models, which are essential for emotionally driven games like The Last of Us Part 2. Decima Engine, on the other hand, excels at creating lush, immersive environments, as seen in Horizon Forbidden West. Insomniac's engine is all about speed and fluidity, perfectly capturing the web-slinging mechanics in Spider-Man. When the engine and the creative vision are in sync, the results are incredible. And let's not forget consistency. Proprietary engines are only used by the studios that create them, which means they're more stable and don't have to deal with compatibility issues or unpredictable updates. Unreal Engine 5, because it's so widely used, can suffer from bugs or changes introduced by updates that disrupt ongoing projects. Imagine working on a game only to have a critical feature break because of a third-party update, something in-house engines don't have to worry about. The results speak for themselves. Look at games like Spider-Man 2, The Last of Us Part 2, or Horizon Forbidden West. They're visually stunning, incredibly polished, and run smoothly. Compare that to some Unreal Engine 5 games like Lords of the Fallen or the Callisto Protocol, which have been plagued by performance issues, stuttering, and inconsistent quality, even on powerful hardware. The difference is hard to ignore.